In Walmart's Who'Knewville, everyone ready their cart. Amazing Black Friday deals are about to start. Online and in the app, such great deals to explore. Everything you love from tech, toys, and more. The days to save and the ones to remember. It's only the 25th to the 30th of November. Set your alarms. Don't miss out. These deals are epic, without a doubt. The Who's are all ready, but are you? Walmart Black Friday deals await. Who knew?
Hi, I'm here to pick up my son Milo.
There's no Milo here.
Who picked up my son from school?
Streaming only on Peacock.
I'm gonna need the name of everyone that could have a connection.
You don't understand. It was just the 5 of us.
So this was all planned.
What are you gonna do? I will do whatever it takes to get my son back.
I honestly didn't see this coming. These nice people killing each other.
All Her Fault. A new series streaming now only on Peacock.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
Breaking news are happening now.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Reality Flash. My name is Mike Bloom, and I'm here to bring you the flashiest breaking news in the wide world of reality TV. Believe it or not, folks, we are but a month and change away from the end of 2025. It has certainly been an interesting year for reality, let alone reality TV. And certainly as we get towards the end of the year, I can definitely put out a podcast talking about some of the most newsworthy items that we experienced in the realm of unscripted TV over the course of this past year. But right now, I'm already looking ahead a couple of calendar pages, and that's not just because I want to sneak peek at what man meat is being offered on the Zaddy calendar come 2026, because while we are looking forward to the ball dropping, networks have already dropped their mid-season winter-spring lineups for 2026. And there's a lot to chew on here, including a cooking show. We'll get into that in just a little bit. So over the past, I would say, couple of weeks, the 4 major broadcast networks, which are CBS, NBC, Fox, and ABC, all released their premiere dates and lineups for, again, it's like kind of winter, spring-ish. First off, spring sort of feels like winter nowadays for half of it. Us East Coasters know where it's at. But also because some shows premiere in like January, February, some they're holding off until March/April. Either way, these shows are pretty much slated to run until about the midpoint of 2026. So we get a good look at what stuff is coming our way for the first half of the year. What is also an interesting wrench being thrown into this as well is the fact that this is a Winter Olympics year. As is the usual case, NBC will be hosting wall-to-wall coverage of the Winter Olympics. And so there was a lot up in the air, much like an alpine skier, as to, okay, how are networks going to be able to make their way around this? Will NBC counter program itself with some of their shows? Will other networks try to put things on at the same time, or just sort of give it up as a ratings lost cause and try to essentially start everything going on as soon as the closing ceremony happens? So let's take a dive into each of these networks and the announcements that were made for their midseason lineups and how it pertains to the world of reality TV. And so you can grab your own calendars, be it Zaddy or otherwise, and accordingly pencil in some of these premiere dates because there's a lot going on and some interesting stuff. There's some new things. There are some new takes on old shows, some, I guess, old takes on new shows, perhaps. Let's get into it. Now, of course, we love all of our networks and all of our shows very equally, but given just the basic DNA of RHAP in general, we'd be remiss not to start with CBS, and specifically, we would be remiss not to start with Survivor 50. So first off, we officially have a premiere date for Survivor 50. It is coming to our eyes and ears on February 25th. That is, as always, a Wednesday. People sort of clocked this low-key earlier when Jeff announced his book, which, for those of you that don't know, is sort of this like commemorative tome with a bunch of photographs both behind the scenes and from the most iconic moments in Survivor history. You get to go into some of Jeff's journal, or he says diary, but I sort of like the alliteration of Jeff's journal about his thoughts as, you know, the show is being made, as the plane is being built, as it flies. So that's coming out on the 24th. And I think a lot of people assumed, okay, Survivor 50 is probably going to premiere sometime after that. And yeah, you did not need to drop your expectations because indeed it is coming out the day after. But people were a little surprised, at least, by what is happening both on that night and actually in the lead up towards it. So Survivor 50 is going to have a 3-hour premiere, a 3-hour episode of Survivor. Usually we just reserve this for the finale, but no, they are kicking it off in an epic fashion for an epic season, for an epic cast. They have not detailed yet exactly what those 3 hours will entail. And look, I get it, especially with attention spans nowadays. I think a lot of people have been quipping since this news came out that that is too long for an entire sit-down phase of Survivor viewing. You know, if your Survivor runtime for an episode with commercials is jutting up against some of the lengthiest Marvel movies, is that something you necessarily want to compare yourself to? No offense, Nate Moore, but for what it's worth, I personally believe, and I have like no, specific resources on this, but this is just my speculation, that I'm fairly sure there are going to be multiple rounds in this episode. I'm thinking back to the premiere of Winners at War, which was 6 years ago at that point, which is wild to think about. But if you recall, that actually squashed 2 rounds into one episode. It was a 2-hour premiere. First round was the Natalie Anderson boot. Second hour was the Amber boot. And so I don't know how they'd apportion it out this time. I don't know if we get 3 boots, but my guess would be 2. And maybe depending on sort of the bells and whistles they have in the premiere episode, maybe they'll make like that first boot like an hour and a half to 2 hours and then sort of tack on the second boot onto that. Or maybe it's a double tribal council like we saw with 41 and 42. It's the first 2 boots and then maybe a third boot on top of that. But that's my best guess. It'd be pretty wild even for a season as big, both in quantity of cast as well as expectations of Survivor 50, to run 3 hours for a singular period. That would be an hour per day. That is wild. I don't necessarily believe that, but we can look forward to the fact that 3 hours, 1/8 of a day on the day of February 25th will be spent excitedly watching the premiere of Survivor 50. But we will have our appetites whet quite a bit on Survivor before then. That's because alongside the premiere date of Survivor 50, CBS also announced a special 2-week programming event. This event involves the 2 weeks prior, leading up to the premiere on the 25th. CBS will be re-airing 10 encore episodes. These are previous episodes that have aired, and they have been specifically curated to highlight cast members from Survivor 50. Now, just given the fact that if you do the math, pretty sure the entire Survivor 50 cast is from more than 10 seasons. So some things might unfortunately get short shrift. It will be very interesting to see what gets highlighted and who gets highlighted. And episodes have yet to be announced at this moment. We do have a little bit of a hint, though, perhaps leading the way as to at least what range of seasons some episodes might be chosen from, because we did get the dates and air times for these encore episodes. So the first is Monday, February 9th and Tuesday, February 10th are both 1-hour episodes. Then we have Wednesday, February 11th and Thursday, February 12th. Both of those are 2-hour blocks. So my best guess is that they're going to just be showing, back-to-back 1-hour episodes, unless they want to do something like, I don't know, like Survivor premiere starting in 46, or like the Jess Chong boot episode. It could be kind of odd to throw in there given the people that are chosen, but what have you. Then we have Friday, February 13th will be an hour at 8. Monday, February 16th will be an hour at 8. And Tuesday, February 17th will be an hour at 8. So listen, if you don't have anyone to celebrate Valentine's Day with, CBS has surrounded you with all your familiar friends and loved ones. Maybe we'll see a loved ones challenge, perhaps, or visit. The big to-do, I think, is that in the week leading up to the 25th, so starting on Wednesday, February 18th, and then the 19th, and then the 20th, there are scheduled to be 3 episodes, one on each day, running from 8 to 9:30. 90-minute episodes. So unless this is like the random premieres that occasionally happened, over the past decade or so of Survivor, these will most likely be episodes from seasons that have brought 90 minutes into the fold as a permanent fixture, which would be 45, 46, 47, 48, 49. Now, given the wealth of people who are from those seasons, that makes a lot of sense, but it seems like we are at least getting 3 episodes from that era of things, but TBD as to when the other episodes and what the other episodes are coming from. They are encore episodes, but who will be the core people that will be on Survivor 50 that will be highlighted? I'm sure at this point, not necessarily, putting this in stone. I'm sure we'll be doing some sort of coverage around it here, either speculating as to what the episodes might be, reacting to what the episodes might be. But I'd be intrigued to hear from you all in the comments. What episodes do you want to air? And what episodes do you think will air? As a reminder, this is not necessarily like the 10 best episodes of Survivor ever, though maybe that's a podcast for a different day, a memo to myself. This is more so episodes that specifically spotlight, at least in theory, some of the players on Survivor 50. Be really intrigued to hear from you all as to what episodes you think it might be. So obviously, that is the big to-do. From a CBS perspective, from an RHAP perspective, there is one more reality show that has been announced that will be happening right after Survivor usually airs at 9:30. America's Culinary Cup. This is a show that, if we're talking about how big of a bite in terms of knowledge do we have about America's Culinary Cup, it's an amuse-bouche at this point. It's but a taste, but a nibble. This is a show that is hosted by Padma Lakshmi, who, for those of you that don't know, is the former host of Top Chef. She serves the host from season 2 all the way to season 20. Remember when Billy Joel's daughter was the host of Top Chef? But this is Padma's new show. She has done a couple of other projects on TV in the culinary variety, but this is her first time back in like a scripted or unscripted, I should say, competition setting. And we really don't know much past that. The description reads, from acclaimed Emmy Award-nominated food expert Padma Lakshmi, America's Culinary Cup will feature an invitation-only cast of the nation's most decorated chefs as they embark on a one-of-a-kind competition designed to challenge their creativity, endurance, presentation, leadership, and more. So it seems like, at least from a casting perspective, we are going less so in the realm of, obviously, the civilian chefs, like you might see on some of the Fox shows, or even like a Top Chef, where some people are recruited, but by and large, you have these chefs from all around the country applying. It seems like this is more of like a Top Chef Masters, for those of you who watched it, where this was sort of an invite only, which makes sense given the fact that it was a brand new show. And so I imagine we're bringing in a number of luminaries from the culinary scene under the bright lights of this studio to do God knows what. If it's Culinary Cup, maybe they're making things that can fit in a cup. Maybe they are trying to pair the best wine with that whatever meal they're making this week. Maybe it's just another tournament show, but that makes it so similar to something like Tournament of Champions. How is it going to be different? How is Padma involved in general? I imagine she's hosting and judging like she was for Top Chef. But what does it mean? What does it mean? This is as inexplicable as molecular gastronomy, but we will be foaming at the mouth, certainly, when America's Culinary Cup premieres on March 4th. Now, seeing America's Culinary Cup on the schedule does also provide a bit of contextual news, at least as to the show that is currently following Survivor this fall, which is The Amazing Race. So far, The Amazing Race started producing these 90-minute episodes in season 35, and it's at a pretty good clip of, we had one in the fall, then the spring, then the fall, then the spring, and then it seems like we're taking a break from The Amazing Race. The Amazing Race 39, which has filmed at this point, it has been, if not explicitly renewed by CBS, I think barring any sort of wild unforeseen circumstances, would not be canceled with the season having already been produced. But it's TBD as to when we are going to see that produced season on our screens, because it is not going to be airing in the spring. My biggest guess would be that it's most likely airing in the fall. Maybe it's airing in the summer if they want to keep doing this 90-minute Big Brother stuff. Maybe this would be a good pairing for it. I mean, The Amazing Race is celebrating its 25th anniversary, believe it or not, in the fall of 2026, which made me think that, okay, season 40, it certainly has been bandied about from racers and fans alike as to, is this going to be a big celebration? I would think celebrating the 25th anniversary, that would be the case. But we saw with Survivor 50 that even if you celebrate the anniversary belatedly, it is still possible to do that. So I would say, fortunately for Amazing Race fans, definitely marinade in the last month we have of this season, because it's the last U.S. Amazing Race that we are going to see for at least the first half of 2025. Let's move on here to Fox. I want to go to Fox next because we have some other big stuff coming that I want to save for the second half of this podcast. So Fox is going to kick off its unscripted slate right off the bat. As soon as that clock turns midnight, that night will be Hell's Kitchen, season premiere on January 1st. Speaking of shows that took the fall off, or took a specific chunk of time off where it usually airs, The Masked Singer, for the first time since it premiered, ended up skipping this fall, but it will be coming back with a 2-hour premiere on January 7th. Interesting, given some of the casting choices involving people who may or may not have been involved with January 6th. But the bigger to-do when it comes to a new show that's coming to Fox, new, I'm going to put in loose quotations, because this is something that we've talked about before when it was announced at the upfronts earlier this year, and it's gained since a subtitle and a concept. Fear Factor, House of Fear. First off, is an incredible name that you would see on a VHS in the corner of your local video store, not that Blockbuster corporate BS, but you go to your local video store, it's gathering cobwebs in the very, very back corner. It's clear that no one is dusted there. No one's even been back there. Feels appropriately spooky. And this is not even a B-list movie. This is a triple B list movie. It's fallen so far off the radar. Fear Factor, House of Fear. We couldn't have picked a better name. Really? We had to use the word fear twice. We had to bookend with fear. I guess maybe that is their intention, because from the promotional materials that have been posted already, and from the trailer that has been shown as well, they are really focusing on this idea of you've got to face your fear. And I guess that was the concept initially. I feel like more so the initial concept of Fear Factor. Yeah, there were some scary things, but it wasn't about you have to face your personal fear. It's just more so hey, who wants to do crazy shit for the concept of somewhat of a sum of money in front of a man that would become one of the most influential voices in America. But here is the concept, at least, as has been written out by Fox. Dropped into an unforgiving remote location, a group of strangers will live together under one roof and face mind-blowing stunts, harrowing challenges, and a twisted game of social strategy where trust is fleeting and fear is a weapon. Again, this reads just like the back blurb on this VHS copy that I've metaphorically discussed just a bit ago. Only one contestant will conquer all their fears. Again, their fears. I don't know why we're personalizing this, and walk away with the massive grand prize. I have watched the trailer for this. They posted a couple of these, and this looks absolutely buck wild. I guess, when you are bringing this concept back for the first time in a while. Now, remember, I talked about this before. Fear Factor did have technically a temporary rebirth on MTV, but this does feel like a bit of a return to form. We're back on broadcast television. And so we see such outlandish tasks as like people being buried in concrete. Of course, we've got to do our gross food eating. And so we see Johnny Knoxville, who's just absolutely gleeful this entire time, blending up a cow's heart, assumingly to be drank. There's someone who's being dragged by a horse, assumingly before they get dragged by the other players for their efforts. Someone gets electrocuted. And then at the end of this, go figure, there's a shot of an ambulance. I'm frankly quite surprised they didn't just build the titular House of Fear next to a hospital. It only seems like they're going to be making frequent visits to the ER. Johnny Knoxville should be trained in CPR if he is not already, considering some of the ridiculous shit, not to be confused with ridiculousness, talked about that last time, that they are going to be doing in this. I'm really intrigued by the social strategy concept because it's been teased before. It was announced in this press release. Is it like, are you voting people in to one of these challenges? From what I took a glimpse at, it seems like there are some challenges that everyone does. There are some challenges that people do in pairs or as individuals. So maybe it is something where, one person wins safety through the first fear-based challenge, and then everybody else votes one person in, and then the winner sends someone else. And maybe I just have challenge on the brain because that's very much the makings of a challenge season. And then these two people face off in a fearful elimination. I'm not entirely sure. I'm still much like that cow's heart chewing on what exactly it means to bring social strategy into Fear Factor. Also interesting, as the title indicates, I believe all these people will be living together. And maybe the House of Fear describes the aesthetic. Maybe they really try to spookify this house, like Anderson's House of Tortures from The Mole Season 2, to really put people in a heightened sense of anxiety so that they're just absolutely startled and frazzled moving into these do or die tasks. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it's just decorated like a nightmare, not literally metaphorically. Maybe they just had to go super cheapo depot with their rental house. And so the furniture might not be up to snuff, but we shall see what's going to be happening with Fear Factor House of Fear coming January 14th. Let's talk Extracted for a second. One of, I would say, the surprising new reality hits of 2025. Extracted, for those who don't know, is a concept where each team, I should say, is a group of 3 players. One person is the survivalist. They are stranded out in the wilderness, hoping to make it through a set number of days to win a certain amount of money. And then the other 2 people who are related to them in some way are watching them the entire time from this big ass control room. There's cameras everywhere that allows them to watch their loved ones. They can, make decisions that influence them one way or the other, whether it comes to things they might get for a certain challenge or things they might not get, or do you want to send them certain care packages, or what supplies do they need? Or most crucially, there's a big button in the middle of the control room. And at any time, if you or the survivalist feel like you're done, you smash that button, just like you should smash that like if you're watching this on YouTube. And they are immediately pulled from the game. They are extracted, and your journey towards the prize is over. So this will be interesting because obviously no one has seen the concept in season 1. I would imagine that people in the cast have seen season 1 up to this point. And so, will they be taking some of the same strategies as the people used in season 1? Or will they more so be like, I don't want to do what blank did? I'm not entirely sure, but I'm always interested in with a season 2, because they can now immediately react to what's being done in season 1 and have it inform their game or otherwise. But, I started off this segment of the podcast with Survivor. I'll end with Survivor as well, because we got to see Sandra Diaz-Twine make her Fox debut during the brief portion of time she spent on 99 to Beat this fall. This time, she definitely has less than 99 to beat, but She's keeping it in the Fox family, as it turns out the Queen of Survivor will be adding another jewel to her reality TV tiara. She will be a cast member on season 2 of Extracted, along with her daughter, Nina Twine. Now, this is not the first time these two have played, technically speaking, together. They were both cast members on Australia Survivor, Blood versus Water. It was super fun. They both got brought in through Chopper. Somebody thought that she was Oprah because of how, big of an entrance it was. Unfortunately, they didn't get that much time playing together. They did for a brief portion of time, but here they get to do so, hopefully in a larger fashion. Now, I guess the question is, my assumption would be that Nina would be this survivalist, unless they're like, maybe they're doing something that it's like Sandra's husband / Nina's father, or maybe it's like Nina's boyfriend and Sandra's, wannabe son-in-law, and those two are the ones in the control booth. Honestly, I don't know which outcome I want more. I mean, for good TV, the outcome I want the most is for Sandra to be the survivalist. But this woman has won $2 million, has been on reality TV for over 20 years. There is absolutely no way, if given the option between living in the woods of British Columbia with nothing but the clothes on your back versus sleeping in a nice, cushy control room and exacting mental warfare on your competition, she is always choosing the latter, no matter what. Should also mention, as well, we got some Big Brother representation on Elise, aka Sis from Big Brother 21, as well as her brief stint on the challenge will be there as well. I imagine she'll be with a couple family members too. I don't know if she'll be the survivalist, though, or if she's one of the people in the control room. We shall see. But that is very exciting. Look, we are in the era of reality TV crossovers, and so we got to keep crossing the streams here, and we'll see how many streams Sandra or Nina has to ford if they're stranded out in the middle of the forest as part of season 2 of Extracted. Again, coming to our screens on January 26th. I'll be back with the mid-season and spring reality TV shows coming to our airwaves for NBC and ABC right after this.
Purina believes no one should have to make the impossible choice between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Through the Purple Leash Project, Purina is helping create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit purina.com/purple to learn more.
Hello, I'm Diane Morgan. If you know who I am, you know who I am. If you don't, who cares? I'm here to explain Italian Time, a holiday phenomenon where Italians throw away their clocks and gather for eternity with San Pellegrino. I've been at this party so long that I've eaten 5 courses, hugged someone's grandma twice, and been offered a job in the family restaurant. So this holiday season, make sure to bring enough San Pellegrino to last you through the meal, the after meal, and the entire goodbye ritual. San Pellegrino, holiday on Italian Time.
Kraft mac and cheese is the best thing ever. It's even better than pop music. You look just as natural enjoying us at age 13 as you do 55. Kraft mac and cheese. Best thing ever.
Let's go to NBC here. And I guess I put an asterisk at the end of NBC because technically this is like NBC and some of its subsidiary networks. But of course, again, given the R in RHAP, I'd be remiss not to talk about The Traitors. For those of you that don't know, The Traitors has released a flurry of social media posts and major announcements and trailers and assets over the past week or so, which is kind of wild because as they revealed, The Traitors is premiering January 8th. We are almost 2 months away from the premiere, but we have so much good content. I'm sure there will be plenty to talk over on the We Know Traitors feed leading into January 8th. Something to note as well, the airing schedule for The Traitors Season 4. So they will be premiering with 3 episodes as they usually do. So call off of work, folks. It's going to be a long night getting to see our fearful leader back on TV for the first time in over 2 decades. But there's a bit more front-loading for the traders than usual. It's gone full Cat Ederson. It's a little top heavy because the next week there will be 2 episodes dropping. We've seen in seasons 2 through 2 and 3 that it's usually gone 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and then all the way down until the finale. But this time it's going 3, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Not entirely sure why. Maybe it's to end at a certain day, which we can certainly talk about. I mean, it is kind of wild that the typical Trader season runs about like 11 episodes plus the reunion. So by the end of the second week, will have already expended like almost half the season. I've seen a variety of responses here. Some people, are unhappy that we're burning through half the season so quick. Some are more friendly to the binge model and want as much Traders as they can get. But just so everybody knows, you're going to be watching a lot of Traders season 4 in the first 2 weeks of January. And should be noted that the finale is going to be all the way in the end of February. In fact, we know that Survivor 50 is going to premiere on February 25th. The Traders is going to wrap up on February 26th. So it's not like an exact sunrise, sunset, the sun and the moon not being seen in the same place type of moment. There's a smidge of overlap, but this is a very nice transition, for those of you who are jonesing for more reality TV content, and the encore episodes aren't doing it for you. Give Traders a shot. I'm sure there will be plenty, again, in the lead up to January 8th, talking about what the Traders is, why you should check it out. Of course, features a number of noted reality TV alumni, including the one and only Rob Cesternino. But I definitely thought when the Traders cast was announced, this is the first time really that the show is going up against the Winter Olympics. And so I was wondering, okay, are they going to just wait until the Winter Olympics is over? Are they going to load everything into the first month? Do they want to counter program themselves? And the interesting thing is that not only are the Traders airing at the same time as the Olympics, they expressly seem to front load their schedule to end when the Olympics do. And so, regardless of how Johnny Weir and Tara Lipinski do, I'm sure we'll be seeing them on an NBC property over the course of February through the 26th. But set your calendar, folks, from January 8th through February 26th. It will be Traders time. But moving over to NBC proper, there's only really one other big show that I want to talk about, but let's talk about The Voice. The Voice is in its 29th season, which is fairly wild. It's been on the air for, I believe it'll be 15 years in the spring. And so while it is kind of an odd number, literally 29, they are going out on a limb to present their most audacious theme yet. Battle of the Champions. Now, you might look at this idea and you think, oh, this is fun. It's like an all-star season. We never really had that with American Idol. America's Got Talent did try it a bit with the whole fantasy league, champions concept that they've done a couple of times. Not necessarily. As is usually the case with The Voice, usually it's more so referring to the most talked about elements of The Voice itself, which are the coaches. This, for all intents and purposes, does seem to be a regular season of The Voice in that it is new contestants trying out to the show, hoping they're the judges' chair turns, that they pick them, that they make it through all of these rounds upon rounds in the pursuit of, I'm assuming, a recording contract, I guess. Again, the weird thing about the where are they nows of The Voice alumni, fairly staggering, especially in recent years, but maybe this will change that as we are going with a brand new format. The Battle of the Champions will feature a star-studded panel of only 3 judges. This is the first big difference, as we are not going with the big 4. The quartet has downsized to a trio in this economy, and so they are bringing back 3 heavy hitters, though, and these are former champions in their own right, 3 people who have won The Voice when their artists do, and that is Kelly Clarkson, newfound queen of daytime TV, John Legend, Arthur, and Adam Levine, who had left the show for a long portion of time, came back for one season, and clearly still kind of wants to dip his toes into the water, at least, if not every season. So these are going to be the three coaches for the Battle of the Champions. I'm going to read through this format because it's a lot, and they've already outlined how it's going to work, and maybe there's a reason why that I will get to in just a little bit. But first, we start, as we always do, with the blind auditions. Coaches compete against each other in the triple turn competition. And here I thought we were going to be done with the Winter Olympics, but we've got a whole triple axel thing going on. But it seems like the coaches are competing against each other to vie for the most 3-chair turns. So when everybody turns around, the artist gets to pick who they want to be their coach. I guess whichever coach gets the most people from the 3-chair turns will get a special advantage in the next round. I kid you not. We're bringing whole ass advantages into The Voice. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? I didn't. Let's move on to the battles. Of course, this is the opportunity for artists from the same coach's team to square off against each other. 2 enter, 1 will leave unless there's a save or steal that's used. So apparently for the battles this season, the coach with the most 3-chair turns automatically earns a super steal for the battles. This is the advantage they earn from getting the most 3 chairs. This coveted prize can only be used once and trumps any other coach's attempt to steal, guaranteeing a win. Okay, so this is like, okay, this makes sense. So it's sort of like if there was a bigger version of the Idol, like maybe it's the Idol nullifier in a manner of speaking, in that if Kelly Clarkson and Adam Levine both want to steal somebody, rather than, again, having the artist pick between the two, if Kelly had the super steal, that would effectively nullify, overwhelm, supersede Adam's steal, and she would automatically get that person. So can't wait to see the super duper steal get brought in for season 30 at the rate that this is going. Now we move on to the knockouts, and this is where things get a little twisty. Yes, we are not explicitly featuring luminaries from past seasons of The Voice returning to the stage, but it's not to say we'll be completely without them, because in this round, each coach brings back 2 fan favorite artists from their teams from previous seasons to compete in an in-season all-star competition. This sort of feels like the in-season tournament for the NBA at this point, where we just sort of like stop the season and be like, and now we're going to do something different for a little while. But apparently they each are bringing back, the coaches are, 2 previous winners, and they will represent their former coaches as they battle in head-to-head sing-offs. And the coach with the most sing-off wins across these, I guess it would be 3 matchups, right? They get to determine, or they get to guarantee, a second finalist in the finale. So no matter what, they are not going into the finale either empty-handed or only with one person. They get to bring someone else into the finale as well. And what's also interesting is that the All-Star Showdowns will not be adjudicated really by the coaches, because obviously there's going to be a lot of bias at hand. Instead, the winner, and maybe there's a reason why the last coach's chair was left unoccupied, will be adjudicated by the one, the only CeeLo Green, who did not say "forget you" to the show, despite the fact that he was not been on it since like season 3 or 4. He is going to roll back in there and be able to judge these all-star showdowns. We have a brief list as to who is coming back as well for each team. So Team Kelly has represented by previous winners Girl Named Tom and Jake Hoot. Team John Legend is represented by Malin Jarman and Renzo, not Rizzo. And Team Adam is being represented by Jordan Smith and the very first winner of The Voice, Javier Colon. I'd be intrigued to see if these old schoolers will get bumped out by the new schoolers, if this is another winners at war situation. But again, this is happening entirely differently from everything else that's going on with the competition, where these regular people are also competing to survive in The Voice for another week. And let's talk about how it's all going to come to an end. As has usually been the case with The Voice, as of late, they've actually minimized the public voting. They really only do 2 rounds of public voting. There's like a top 9 semifinal, and then there is a top 4 finale. Now, what's very interesting is that as minimal as the public voting concept was to The Voice up to this point, it has now been minimized to 0. NBC has announced that for the first time in The Voice history, a new voting block, again, a very Survivor-coded season, comprised of superfans and past Voice artists will have the opportunity to get in on the fun firsthand, experiencing the competition as part of the in-studio audience voting for their favorites in real time during the semifinals and finale. So we're but passengers as mere plebeians. There are people who are going to be in the studio, invited superfans as well as alumni of The Voice, who will be determining who moves on and who goes. This is really interesting. Now, it makes me feel, and I don't know if this has been confirmed by NBC or not, but it makes me feel that means the episodes are not truly live, that these might be pre-taped scenarios. We see this a bit with The Masked Singer, right, where it's like, America can vote. The audience in the room, they're going to vote on who moves on. So that feels like why the shift is being made is maybe due to like Kelly's schedule, for example, filming her own show. They decided to instead kind of like bank the semifinals and finale performances ahead of time and will air them instead, as the people in the room will be voting and we are not allowed to vote at all. So again, this is a bit of a game changer for the show in multiple ways. Again, forget like leaving the skeleton. They took the whole ass body apart and replaced it with like shark cartilage, considering how many new bells and whistles have been brought in on this. And again, given the fact that, as I'm assuming, it's an all new group of singers, as it usually is, to have this be the season where they throw all of this at them, I'll be very intrigued to see if the DNA of The Voice remains the same. But regardless, it is kicking off with a big 2-hour premiere on Monday, February 23rd. Let's move over to ABC to close out this whole shindig. As we talk about 2 properties that are returning, we're not necessarily looking at any new big reality shows for ABC. That's not necessarily their bag. But let's start with American Idol. We were moving on from The Voice to Idol. Unlike people moving on from Idol to The Voice, perhaps in the early 2000s, season 26, believe it or not, of American Idol. We are reaching the point where as much, if not more, seasons of Idol will have been produced on ABC instead of Fox. That is ridiculous. But American Idol will be coming back earlier than usual. In the past, it has really felt more like a spring show. It's usually aired from like February or March all the way through to May. This time, it is premiering on January 26th, a much earlier premiere than usual. I don't know if that means we are going to get an extended season or if that means we are just going to end earlier, perhaps, but very interesting to see how that is going to influence the choices that were made. The other big thing is that if you've got a case of the Mondays, American Idol might be the cure. That's because season 26 is going to premiere on Monday, January 26th. Been interesting tracking, the day and time slot of this show. Previously, of course, in the Fox days, I think it was on like a Tuesday and a Wednesday, or like a Wednesday and a Thursday, some point in the midweek, with its performance nights one day and the results show the next day. In the transition to ABC, where it's been for the past decade or so, it's been predominantly a Sunday night show. And now we're scooching it back into the weekday lineup, putting it on Mondays. The big question is why? And the reason why might be coming just a couple of months after American Idol premieres, which is to say The Bachelorette, Taylor, Frankie, Paul edition. If you missed this, I did a reality flash about it. The Bachelorette, the entire franchise has truly branched out by bringing on as the lead an out-and-out reality star. One of the many leads of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, Taylor Frankie Paul, is at the head of The Bachelorette this season. It has something that has notably attracted a lot of conversation already. I cannot imagine how much more is going to come once we actually see her greeting these men in front of this palatial mansion. But we will be seeing The Bachelorette coming to our screens on March 22nd, a Sunday. And so, much like Bachelor in Paradise, where the consistently changing partners, we're doing a bit of a do-si-do here with two of ABC's mainstay reality TV properties. American Idol is now airing on Mondays, and Bachelorette is airing on Sundays. I'm intrigued to figure out why this is, whether it's like flagging ratings for one encouraged a bit of a shift in the time frame, whether, The Bachelorette for a brief portion of time, I did a previous reality flash on this, was at the brink of cancellation, it seemed. We talked about the fact there was a lot of drama going on behind the scenes. Showrunners of the franchise had exited due to a lot of complaints from workers. And so, with The Bachelorette not necessarily on the schedule, there was some talk of, okay, is this ever going to come back? Now it's sort of flipped where The Bachelor's been renewed for season 30, but we don't know when it's coming back. Notably, this is the first time in a while, I think, where we are not getting any sort of Bachelor Nation content in the first couple months of 2026. Again, you watched The Bachelor with Mel, the Golden Bachelor, and you're going to have to wait a little bit of time to watch more Bachelor Nation content, to watch Jesse Palmer's beautiful face on screen again, because not until March 22nd will we be seeing The Bachelorette on our screens. And so that was a lot. I imagine even just the concept of me trying to break down the new format of The Voice was a lot to digest, much like the people who will be digesting a lot of the food that the contestant from America's Culinary Cup have to offer. But hopefully it was a delicious feast, and we will be feasting come 2026 between a lot of exciting returning shows, certain shows celebrating milestone seasons, new shows coming about, new shows featuring veteran reality TV contestants, a show like Fear Factor coming back with a brand new coat of paint. We will not be remiss for content in the beginning of 2026. And I hope you all are seated, because we're about to become couch potatoes for the first 6 months of the new year. But I am not complaining. Of course, I want to hear your thoughts about all of this news. What are you looking forward to the most from the batch of shows that I just announced from the first half of 2026? Which episodes from Survivor will you hope or predict will be shown as part of this encore episode special programming leading into the season 50 premiere? What do you think about all these changes The Voice is making? Let me know your thoughts on social media at a Mike Bloom type, and in the comments here on YouTube if you're watching it that way. Of course, while you're here, I would always appreciate subs and tips. So make sure you subscribe to this podcast over at therealityflash.com. While you're there, leave a rating, leave a review. We are encroaching upon nearly a year of doing this. Again, 2026 is turning the pages is very odd in many ways, considering that I started this all the way back in January. But I want to hear from you. Give your thoughts about the podcast, and any rating is greatly appreciated, as we're still trying to appear in the eyes of all these reality TV fans out there in this wide swath of a sea that we call unscripted coverage. And if you have anything you want me to talk about in the realm of reality TV, no spam, no solicitations, just tips at therealityflash.com. Again, that's just tips at therealityflash.com. Thank you all so much for listening. Let me know if you want more of this, if you want more like TV previews, essentially. This was a little much like some of the stuff we were talking about in this episode, unorthodox in terms of my approach, but I'm always willing to try new things, especially as we are approaching the 1-year mark of the Reality Flash. So thank you all, as always, for the support, for listening. I'll be back in your eyes and ears with more reality TV news as it breaks. But until next time, everybody, you've just been flashed.